Good evening. Police have arrested 58 people during an anti-triad operation in East Kowloon. Among them, 13 secondary school students. The youngest is 13 years old. Jenny Lam reports.
These knives and metal rods are among the weapons confiscated during the anti-triad operation. Police have also seized gambling chips plus hundreds of thousands of dollars in Hong Kong and US currencies. Undercover officers infiltrated triad gangs 6 months ago and discovered that they were using youngsters to engage in illegal activities. Some 100 officers searched more than 60 locations and arrested 48 men and women. 9 of them are under 16 years old and the youngest one is only 13. They are suspected of being involved in robberies and other crimes, including wounding, drug trafficking, prostitution and illegal online gambling. Senior Superintendent of Kowloon East, Eugene Yu, said the teenagers were lured by small favours such as food and drink. Some of them acted as watchers at Vice premises. Others responded to gang leaders' calls to make threats to specific targets or were involved in drug trafficking. Police say during the first 9 months of this year, there were 320 reported cases in Kowloon East of youngsters under 16 years old being involved in criminal activities. Although this was a drop from the same period last year, police will continue to liaise with schools in the district to prevent teens from being recruited by triad gangs. There are 8 mainland women among those arrested in the police raids. Some are illegal immigrants or have overstayed their visas. The gang is suspected to have rented rooms in 5 to 6 new hotels in the district to provide sex services. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
There were further calls today on the government to put pressure on the Philippines to apologize and give compensation for the 2010 Manila bus hostage tragedy. Some victims of the incident and their families think the government should consider putting a halt to the processing of new contracts for Filipino domestic helpers. The Democratic Party, meanwhile, is calling for trade sanctions against the Philippines. Jenny Lam again.
Survivors and families of dead victims of the 2010 Manila bus hostage incident are disappointed after a meeting with Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying on what the government can do for them. Che Chi-kin, the elder brother of slain tour guide Ma Se-che, says the chief executive talked about solutions that might not affect Hong Kong people or Filipinos in Hong Kong. And that left them frustrated, as the government has not done more to push for an apology and compensation from the Philippines on their behalf. People Power called on the government earlier to stop processing domestic helper contracts for Filipinos. Today, one of the survivors of the hostage crisis, Lee Ying-chun, says if sanctions are adopted, then there should be a comprehensive policy targeting working visas for Filipinos who want to come to Hong Kong and not just new domestic helpers. But she added that domestic helpers already working in Hong Kong should not be made scapegoats because they have already contributed to the local society. The families want a timetable, promises and targets from the government on when and what can be done. The Democratic Party believes trade sanctions are the answer. They want the government to lead a boycott of Philippines products and cancel all commercial and cultural exchanges. Legislator Sin Chung Kai points out that Hong Kong imports about $40 billion worth of products from the Philippines each year. He believes a boycott will have an immediate effect and improve Hong Kong's bargaining power with the Philippines over the hostage killing. The Democratic Party will meet with the government to discuss their suggestion. Meanwhile, Philippine Justice Secretary Leila de Lima dispelled a media report that she might come to Hong Kong to offer an apology. She clarified that she has not been instructed by President Bernardino Aquino to do so. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Frustration is running high in the United States, where bickering by Congress and the White House has done nothing to end a government shutdown and avoid a debt default. With the less than 72 hours before the debt ceiling expires, protesters took to the streets to express their anger. It was ugly on the streets of Washington, D.C. yesterday, where liberals and conservatives used landmarks as stages to act out their frustration.
They're peeved that political leaders have run amok, rendering hundreds of thousands of people jobless and pushing the debt ceiling issue down to the wire. The masses were so angry, they literally dismantled the gates that closed the World War II memorial. That's where Tea Party leaders like Sarah Palin and Senator Ted Cruz also voiced their outrage.
Is this any way that a commander-in-chief would show his respect, his gratitude to our military?
Let me ask a simple question. Why is the federal government spending money to erect barricades to keep veterans out of this memorial?
Over on Capitol Hill, senators whose responsibility is to mend the government's budget woes remain divided. They're struggling to determine how much federal spending should be permitted in a budget extension that would reopen the government and how long any new borrowing limit should last. But senators insist negotiations with GOP leaders are going well.
Madam President, I've had a productive conversation with the Republican leader this afternoon. Our discussions were substantive, and we'll continue those discussions.
A total of 3 Americans now share this year's Nobel Prize for Economics. They are Eugene Fama, Lars Peter Hansen, and Robert Schiller. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences honored the 3 for their empirical analysis of asset prices. Their work, the Academy said, contributed towards deepening understanding of how asset prices move. They will share $1.2 million.
Welcome back. Hong Kong may provide good shopping opportunities for mainland visitors, but many of them come here not just to shop. The tourism trade sees new opportunities in the business these visitors might bring and urges the government to provide what they need. Jenny Lam explains.
This was the scene at Asia World Expo this past weekend. Hubei, Shenzhen, Shandong. They came from just about every corner of the mainland. They are here to sit the SAT exam, an entry requirement for universities in the United States. That's because on the mainland, only students attending international schools can take the SAT there. So Hong Kong is the alternative for most mainland candidates. The Hong Kong Examinations and Assessment Authority has prepared notices about the SAT in simplified Chinese characters for mainland students and their parents, complete with maps and directions on how to get to the exam hall. Xi Yun Chen is among them. She is spending 4 days in Hong Kong and plans to do some shopping as well while she is here. On her shopping list, some clothes for herself, some makeup for mum, and maybe some handbags. Her budget, including shopping and hotel, is about $26,000. Travel agencies on the mainland are now running exam tour packages for students like Yu Chen. Gao Yanding, whose company runs these tours, says they cost between 6,000 and 7,000 yuan per person. The SAT is just one of many international and professional exams held at Asia World Expo every year. They attract about 100,000 visitors to Hong Kong a year. But they can only choose between 3 hotels on Lantau Island in order to be close to Asia World Expo. Alan Ha, chairman of Lantau Development Alliance, says this past weekend, for example, all 3 hotels on Lantau were packed, and many of the candidates have to stay in Tsim Sha Tsui instead. Executive Director of the Travel Industry Council, Joseph Tung, sees opportunities in this group of big consumers. Hong Kong, he says, needs to provide the services they need. The Tourism Commission says the government has been trying to increase the supply of hotel rooms on Lantau and will speed up the construction of new hotels there. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
A doctor found guilty of illegally obtaining patients' personal information and fabricating clinical trial results has been suspended for an entire month. The Medical Council of Hong Kong said despite the serious allegations, no harm was done to the patients involved in this trial. Ronnie Samtani has more details.
Dr. Sunny Wong was charged with 6 counts of professional misconduct. Wong worked at Kowloon Hospital as a psychiatric trainee doctor from July 2009 to March 2010. During that time, he illegally obtained patients' personal data through the hospital authority's clinical management system for a research project for his college dissertation. He also deceived 80 patients into thinking he was providing medical consultation when he was actually questioning them for his clinical research. On top of that, Wong manipulated the data from his research in order to achieve satisfactory results. In his defense, Wong claimed that he has always followed the rules when conducting his clinical duties, but admitted he didn't take the project seriously. He apologized for his actions and ensured that in the future he would do his best to follow the code of conduct as a clinical doctor. The Medical Council of Hong Kong noted because the defendant has a clear record and that no harm was done to the patients involved, a 1-month suspension was appropriate.
It's our policy, in fact, that any defendant doctor who cooperates with the investigation and essentially pleads guilty, especially from the very beginning when we look at the case from the preliminary investigation committee stage, right after the inquiry, we will give a more lenient sentence.
The Disciplinary Inquiry Committee stressed that honesty and integrity are attributes required of all doctors. It also noted that the purpose of the disciplinary order is not to punish the doctor, but to maintain public confidence in the medical profession instead. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
An MTR walking race in Central this morning was marred by a protest against increases in train fares. The chairman of the MTR Corporation defended the fares as reasonable, saying they were set in accordance with the fare adjustment mechanism. Kirti Nandwani reports.
An uproar against hikes in train fares. Members of the League of Social Democrats staged a rowdy demonstration on Chater Road this morning, criticizing the MTR Corporation for raising fares while making billions of dollars in profit. They said the railway should belong to the people of Hong Kong and the government should pay attention to their needs.
We urge the government to buy back those shares from the market in order to safeguard the traffic convenience and the affordability of the people who need public traffic on daily basis.
The last fare hike went up by 2.7% in June. It changed under the new system of adjusting ticket prices, which takes into the account of MTRC's annual profit, service performance, and public affordability.
Protesters and concern groups handed over petitions to the chairman of the MTR Corporation, Raymond Chen, and Secretary for Transport and Housing, Anthony Cheung, demanding cuts in train fares. The railways company's chairman defended the fares, saying they were set in accordance with the fare adjustment mechanism. He also denied reports that the design of the new South Island line is faulty, saying the design is still being fine-tuned. He assured the public safety is a key priority.
Here's a system that carries people in and out, more than 5 million people a day. Okay? And I think it's impossible, it's fiscally impossible and humanly impossible to achieve 100%. So I apologize for the 0.1% imperfection that we have. But that's, again, it's unavoidable, but we learn every time we have something that we think that we should do better or we could have improved our procedure.
Love the Anaheim Ducks. That's where my parents are from, and I go visit them all the time, Chris.
No longer mighty, just the Ducks.
That's right. That's right. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Good night.